Hi, I'm Michael, and this is my very no-frills attempt at recording a video about what's going on with me right now. I'm recording this video from the city of Lubango in Angola, and I just want to use this as an opportunity to catch people up on what's been going on. It was last Saturday that I had to go and get a COVID test in order to obtain access into Angola. And because my departure was on a Monday, the best time for getting the test was during the weekend, but unfortunately that also limited my options because fewer places were available to book a test during the weekend. Fortunately, I found a great place called Iker. They weren't too hard to get to, and the service was very quick. It was a mouth swab. I was in and out of Iker's offices within 5 minutes. And less than 24 hours later, I received my copy of the results, was able to file them with the Angolan government, and then some hours after that, the Angolan government gave me the documentation that I needed in order to get into the country. So the rest of my Saturday went by great. I had a sort of a farewell event that my friends Nathan and Kendra hosted for me. I had an opportunity to see a number of people in the flesh that I hadn't seen since before the pandemic started. And then Nathan and Kendra gave me a farewell dinner. That was very nice of them. That basically gave me Sunday to finish cleaning things up in my house and finishing up the last bit of packing. Then Monday morning, Nathan dropped me off at the airport. And there I discovered I had some real difficulty getting into my flight because the ticket desk there in Calgary wasn't quite sure what to make of my information. I had, my passport with my visa that was just issued last month. I presented all the documentation from the COVID test that I had taken and that the Angolan government had received that test. And I presented a letter from SIM Canada saying that, the bearer of this letter is a missionary serving overseas. Unfortunately, Angola has an advisory warning for all travelers that you're only supposed to be going to the country if you have a work permit. Now, I had been very specifically warned by other missionaries, don't say the word work. You say that you're going to Angola to help, but you're not going to work. And so I'd already trained myself that, no, I'm not going to work, I'm going to help. It's all there in the letter. But because the letter was a form letter, wasn't dated, didn't mention my name, the ticket people were not quite sure what to make of it and asked me, did I have other proof? I was, well, guys, I've given you a valid visa. I've shown you that I registered all of this with the Angolan government. I'm not sure why you're giving me a hard time, but I can find you an email if you'll give me the time to boot up my laptop so I can retrieve something that proves that I am a missionary with SIM Canada. But by the time I got the laptop booted up, they had changed their minds and decided, okay, we'll issue your tickets. Now, I'm used to a certain level of bureaucracy when I go to Angola, but this was a little bit new because it was happening on the Canadian side. The only real difficulty that I had getting over here happened while I was still in Calgary, for crying out loud, so that was a little funny. But it only took a half hour for me to clear that up. So then I had this very jam-packed, was what, a 737 from Calgary to Vancouver, about a 1-hour flight. And, the seats had 6 across, 3 seats with an aisle between. And every single seat was booked. That didn't seem quite right to me. I kind of assumed, with the pandemic still going on, that airlines would be kind of enforcing space. Like, okay, there's 3 seats across, so unless all 3 people are traveling together, one of those seats should remain empty so that there's at least some distancing going on. But no, the airlines still believe in maximum profit on every flight, so every single seat was booked. But all the flight attendants were dressed in full PPE gear. They were just covered head to toe for all the cabin service. And the strange thing about it is that was the only time in the entire trip where I saw airline workers who went to that extreme length to ensure that proper precautions were being made. Because the other flights that I took, I didn't see that at all. So 1 hour to Vancouver, and then several hours in the Vancouver airport, where again, the people at the gate wanted to see my passport and my visa and my COVID test results and my authorization by the Angolan government and my letter from SIM, but they didn't raise any issues, so it was just a matter of looking over my papers, seeing that they were all in order, and from there it was a Lufthansa flight from Vancouver to Frankfurt. It was, again, a pretty packed plane. That was, what, a 747? That thing had a lot of people on it. Fortunately, in my row, for some reason, it was a little sparse. We had 4 seats across in the middle, and there was just one other person there. So we just sat at opposite ends so that we had 2 empty seats between us, and that was fine for both of us. I tried to use that extra space to kind of lie down a bit and try to get some rest, but I don't sleep very well on airplanes. I think over the course of Monday, Tuesday, I had 90 minutes sleep all put together, so by the time I actually got to Angola on the Wednesday, I was not doing so great. I spent, some 10 hours in Frankfurt, which was a bit ridiculous. I did try to get rest even there, but I couldn't quite bring myself to doze off. I thought it would be nice to try to get some dinner while I was there, try to get something maybe authentically German, but the pandemic had closed down almost every single restaurant in the airport. So in the wing of the airport I was in, there was a coffee shop and there was a McDonald's, so I settled for a McDonald's, but I did eat the Deutsche Burger, because, if you're going to eat German McDonald's, it may as well be authentic German McDonald's. And from there, it was Frankfurt to Luanda, which was a pretty smooth flight. This plane was the least full of them all. I think it might have been 50% capacity, or possibly less, maybe like 45%, because there were a lot of empty seats. This time I was in a row with just 2 seats, and I had both to myself, so I felt really good about that. That was a good trip. And when I arrived in Luanda on the Wednesday, 5:30 a.m., it was unlike anything I had ever gone through before, because of course I haven't flown since the pandemic started. So all of the passengers were shepherded out of the plane into a bus, then taken to this emptied aircraft hangar, which had been converted into a massive space for testing, so that there was plenty of room for social distancing between all of us as we did this. They took my temperature, they had me supply the information from my previous tests, they filled out a card about me, and then I went to get my test done. And the nurse motioned that I should pull down my mask. And I thought this was going to be a throat swab, like on Saturday, so I opened my mouth with that. And he goes, "Now," and drives the swab straight up my nose, which I was not braced for, and that was extremely painful, I have to say. But fortunately, these tests had the results in minutes, so I didn't even have to sit very long waiting until my name was called. And of course, it was a negative result. I could continue on, got into another bus, and was then brought to the main terminal to go through immigration. And immigration in Angola is usually quite a process, but this was the easiest immigration I had ever done. To be fair, I had a different visa than what I normally use. This was the visa of temporaria permanencia, temporary residency. I'd never had that visa before. So maybe that had something to do with why it was so easy, but all I did was present the negative results from the test I just had, provide all the results from the tests that I took on Saturday and that I had registered with the government, showed them my visa, and I was waved through. No one asked to look at my luggage after I picked it up, and I do normally get asked to open my bag so they can have a look at things, so that all felt great. So I felt things were going really strong at this point, and then I exited the airport, and all my momentum came crashing down because my drivers were not there to pick me up. Awful lot of other drivers and hustlers there, but nobody with a sign with my name on it, which is what I was told to expect. And I was kind of wondering, who are all these other people who are boarding in Frankfurt and coming to Angola? And I kind of got my answer there when I read all the signs for the drivers who were awaiting people, and it seemed like just about everyone was for an oil and gas company. So yeah, that's what all those other people on the flight were doing. But eventually, my drivers showed up, and with them they brought a SIM card for my phone so that I could begin using my telephone here in Angola, same phone that I used in Canada. Really nice that it works. It's the same model that I brought to Angola 3 years ago, but I couldn't get the SIM card to read, and it seemed to render my phone inoperable, so I had to get it replaced. So yeah, nice that this time the phone works. So my driver, Jerson, was able to speak English. Didn't think too much of his English, but he spoke it very well. So while I tried to speak Portuguese whenever I could to make myself understood, I would fall back on English if something wasn't quite getting through, or I had a kind of a tricky thing that I needed to clarify. But that all felt really nice, and taking this drive from Luanda to Lubango, it meant I was seeing a part of Angola that I had not seen before. Like, basically up until we reached Kakula. I'd been as far as Kakula before from my one time on the road to Kalakembe. So everything from Luanda to Kakula was parts of Angola I had no experience with. And it was really neat, even though at times you would really feel the urban sprawl where buildings are really tight to the sides of the roads, and you feel kind of boxed in, and you can't really take in any kind of scenery. But then, well, the car would come over a bend, and you'd be looking out into a nice green valley where the road itself was the only thing despoiling the wilderness. And for a kilometer in every direction, it was just nothing but green. And yeah, that was really beautiful. We passed over the Rio Kwanza, which, if you didn't know, the currency in Angola is the Kwanza. We had to pay a toll booth before we could pass over the bridge. So I attempted a joke in Portuguese that's why we had to pay Kwanzas, because it's the Rio Kwanza. I don't think they got my humor. And it was a really long ride. because that's a 15-hour drive to get from Luanda to Lubango. And as I mentioned, I had 90 minutes sleep in the previous 2 days, so although initially I was just so enthused by everything that it was no struggle at all to stay awake, as it went hour after hour after hour, I was really beginning to lose it. And I would start to doze for a couple seconds, but then there would be a sudden jerk from the vehicle, and I would focus myself back to attention. Fortunately, we had a few stops. At one of them, they suggested that they could buy me a coffee in it, and I thought, oh yeah, great, then I can stay awake. It was more of a cafezinho. It was a very small coffee, but it did really hit the spot, kept me awake. And the interesting thing about those gas stations that we stopped at were the precautions that I saw people taking. I mean, I said before that I was really impressed by all the PPE that I saw in Calgary, but businesses in Calgary, aside from masking policies and providing sanitizing gel, haven't done anywhere near as much as what I was seeing in all these Angolan businesses, because there would be a guy who would open the door for you so that you were not grasping the door handle and leaving any who knows what on the handle. He would then take your temperature as well as you entered the gas station. Like, that was a level of detail and commitment to taking every possible step that I haven't seen anywhere in Calgary. So I'm genuinely impressed by that. And the unfortunate thing about taking this 15-hour drive is that right around 6 p.m. the sun goes down, and if you know anything about this part of Africa, you know that when the sun goes down, it goes down super fast. We still had another good 4 hours of driving to do at that point. And at this point we were past Benguela, and after Benguela the road was kind of miserable. It had been more or less smooth, give or take a detour here and there, but now we were on these patches of roads with massive potholes everywhere, but you can barely see the potholes at night, and so we were constantly slowing down to take the potholes slowly, to try to maneuver around them, and it just made everything take longer and feel more frustrating, having to drive in the dark on such a pothole-ridden road. But eventually I made it here. I am currently on the Micha complex, which was once considered the edge of Lubango. It really is not now, because Lubango extends so far past Micha now. And I have to quarantine here for 1 week. So it's pretty nice weather. You'll notice I'm wearing long sleeves, and this is Africa. The temperatures that I was leaving Calgary earlier in the week, like, we were getting 40s, and here it's more like the low 20s. And it's particularly cool when you're indoors all day, as I am. I'm not out under that African sun. I'm here inside in the shade. My meals are cooked for me primarily by my aunt, so that's very nice. I get to see her through the bars of my cell, because literally this house does have bars on all the windows as a security feature. So yeah, do I feel a little oppressed? I mean, I'm wearing a striped shirt. What do you think? All the same, it is really great to be here in Angola, that this trip has finally come to an end, and that after a week here, I will move on to the next phase. I don't know how often I'm going to make a video like this. I'm primarily recording this just because I'm in quarantine, so I have time to sit down and do this. But we'll see what happens in the future. If you find this interesting, then great, tell me. I will make more videos. I will make an effort, even if it's just something short. So, thank you for indulging me. I hope you got something you like out of this video. Take care. God bless. Bye.